No pressure.
All right, gentlemen, we're on. Matt, were you able to listen to the podcast that Kirk and I did a few months ago?
I did, yeah.
It was a good podcast.
I listened to it like 8 times.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
I'm just kidding. I just listened to it once.
He knows more about it than we do.
I was like, man, I haven't listened to it for a while.
Yeah, it's fun to go back and listen because I don't catch everything that we talk about.
Right.
So I'm kind of thinking sometimes like, what do I ask next, or how to keep the conversation moving.
Yeah, you never do.
And so I miss a lot. But we can definitely go over some of the stuff that we did talk about and just rehash some stuff out. And anything that you guys are passionate about is always something that the world could use. So, well, maybe. I don't want to say always. But Kirk, we appreciate you coming up. You're going to be doing, what are you going to be doing tomorrow?
So we're just going to work on some basic mechanics with rifle and pistol. So we'll be doing a course here, about half dry fire, half live fire. And kind of the mentality behind it is building the building blocks to be successful. When I used to instruct for the Special Forces, one of the things that I was really big on is weapons manipulation, just because it's one thing to be able to shoot real fast, but if you can't keep your firearms running,
Yeah.
you know, you're a flash in the pan because those 30 rounds go pretty quick. So just being able to react appropriately to malfunctions, to to any kind of stoppage, and get those firearms ready to go is really important in a tactical sense. But in a competition sense, they're so important because you're on a clock, and in certain types of competitions, it comes down to tenths of seconds between first and second. So having those solid fundamentals and procedures down is paramount.
Yeah. There's very little that's more annoying than being in the middle of a match and having something happen that was completely preventable.
Right.
That adds to your time.
Right. Yeah. Like the guys who load or think they load.
Yeah.
And then pull the trigger and get a click and the magazine falls out. And
Yeah.
it's like, man, I wish I had that start over again.
Yeah. I wish I could say that's never happened. But
Yeah.
It definitely has.
Yeah. Most people who have shot a bit have had things like that happen.
Yeah. Matt, have you had anything like that in the tactical games?
You bet. Yeah, and I've got some bad habits that I do when I have a malfunction or something. I'll kind of stop and last time when I took a class with Kirk, there's a procedure you do when that happens. You don't just stare and look at your gun for a few minutes and then you slam your magazine, you re-rack it, and you go again. You don't have to take forever to do it. But if you haven't practiced that, if you haven't trained that, it frazzles your mind. So there's a procedure for that. Plus that, when you like Kirk was saying, the more you do it, the more you shoot, the more you realize that these things happen. It's just sometimes you don't get it right. Sometimes you don't load it right. Sometimes it just happens. Sometimes it's your fault. Sometimes it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes your ammunition was made by the lowest bidder and it doesn't go bang reliably.
Yeah.
So, you've got to have the procedures down, and they really need to be in that subconscious, so you're not having to think about it in the moment. You squeeze the trigger, it went click. What do you do?
Yeah.
It needs to happen.
One of my first tactical games was in Price, Utah, and there was this course where you're in your vest, your belt, AR, and a rucksack on top of it. Yeah. And it started off with 30 rounds, and I want to say it was 5 places that you go and shoot, and 6 rounds each.
Yep.
And they were longer and longer distances.
Right.
My first shot goes bang, and then I go to shoot again, and it clicks. I'm like, uh-oh, what's going on? So take out the magazine, re-rack it, put in a new one, click. Or not a new one, but, the same magazine.
Yeah.
And I ended up missing all 30 rounds. I might have hit that first one, but 29 rounds missed. And I had a magazine failure. The chaser, the
follower.
Yeah, the follower got stuck at the very bottom of the magazine and just wouldn't. And then my fault because I didn't go test out all the magazines at 30 rounds.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, that's 300 seconds added onto my time.
Yeah.
So,
I'm not a huge brand snob a lot of the time, but magazines are one of the things that I'm kind of a little bit of a snob on.
yeah.
I'm kind of a big believer in PMags.
Yeah.
There are some other ones that are good, but the Magpul PMags
Yeah.
don't seem to fail very often.
Yeah.
Whereas I've seen a lot of other brands.
And they're not very
come up
expensive either.
wanting. No,
Those are-
they're not.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're
I
definitely,
think I've got about, I don't know, 20 or 30 of those.
yeah.
Don't say too much on the
I mean, I have several of those.
I was using it. It was a newer brand, and that they were local, so I just thought, hey, let's support these guys.
Right.
And I wouldn't have told anyone who the brand was until they rectified it. They came out with these new ones, and they're like, hey, go take these out, test them, run them through the mill. So I did, and then I've used those every one since. And
No,
it's
they're good.
a Men 2.
Oh, okay.
It's
Yeah,
out of
yeah.
Idaho Falls. So their first iteration, not great. Their second iteration, better. This Mod 3 that they have is great.
Yeah, they're making some cool stuff now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they do a monthly subscription that you get cool looking ones that they've Cerakoted.
There you go.
So,
I mean, that's a big part of it. Look cool.
yeah.
That's
That's
never get
if
lost.
I can't shoot well, I've got to look good.
Yeah. Look good. Never get lost. If you get lost, look good.
As an Army Ranger, speaking of getting lost, did you guys do a lot of...
So I was never a ranger.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So I didn't go through ranger school, and I did not spend any time in ranger battalion. So most of my time was SF.
Oh, okay. So in SF, did you guys do a lot of mapping and compass work? And
So that's a huge portion of our selection process is land navigation. And man, I had some experiences with it because I went through selection as a very new soldier, back in the day, you used to have like 4 or 5 years before you could even entertain going to selection.
yeah.
But I had like 6 months. And a lot of the guys didn't like that. They were like, I've been in 4-6 years, and what makes you think you should be here? And I'm like, my recruiter told me I could,
Yeah.
and that, so I wasn't cocky about it. I understood where they were coming from,
Yeah.
and I just went out and tried to do my best. But land navigation beat me up pretty bad in selection. You have to do it with your ruck on. You've got a rubber duck that you're carrying, a fake rifle.
Yeah.
So you're all kitted out. And we were carrying 65 pounds in our rucks, plus water, plus our rifle and all that, and having to navigate at night, in the pitch dark. We couldn't be seen. They wouldn't allow us to run on roads. That was an immediate honor code violation.
Okay.
So you had to be out in the woods. And man, North Carolina, it's got pretty good vegetation. It was dark. It was dark. So you're just working off your military compass and what you remember from mapping and planning your route. We'd have to cover up with 2 poncho liners and use a red lens flashlight to like plan our route at night. And then you'd put that stuff all away and take off on your route. And it was a lot. And just like everything else, if you follow the fundamentals that they teach you, you're going to be good. If you get cocky and think that you can dead reckon 7 clicks, 7,000 meters at night, you're probably going to have a bad night. And I had a bad night one night. I ended up walking a lot of extra distance because my compass broke and I didn't know it.
Oh.
Until I don't know if I was looking good. I probably broke both rules. I was lost and not looking cool. Yeah. So we did a lot in training. And then, it became very important in operations and, in training things that I did later on, knowing how to navigate through jungles in the desert, all those places is really important.
It's a lost art now. Now you just pull out your iPhone and go to town, but maybe that's not always a good thing.
No, and it's nice having satellites, but the thing that most people don't realize is there are places where satellites, you can't get a signal. I've run into 2 situations where I got in trouble. expecting my GPS to work. One time was hunting, and we had just an incredibly thick fog roll in, and it couldn't penetrate, and it just didn't have a signal, and it was thick. Didn't have a signal, and I was just like, I think it's that way.
Yeah.
You get disoriented anyway in the fog, even if you've been there before.
Yeah, and it ended up, we pulled out a compass, and we're like, oh yeah, it's that way, and we, used a compass.
It's cool you had a compass.
The old compass method, huh?
The old compass method. It worked out, where the GPS failed me. And the other time was in Korea. You're sometimes down in these deep valleys, and the angle of all those satellites is too low, and so you can't get a signal. And you're just like, man, pull out the paper and the compass again and see where we're at, and use those lost arts of, resection and, just regular land navigation.
That'd be a fun thing to do sometime in the summer.
Yeah.
Do a little course.
Not this winter, not right now.
Yeah.
Now's the time to stay indoors and think about doing stuff like that.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that there are some competitions out there that still make people land navigate, and that's one of the things that is a skill that everybody should have. We should all know how to read a map, in my opinion. We should know how to read a map. You should be able to orient that map, know which way is north, with the aid of a compass or not, and just be able to kind of plan a route. And there's ways to do it that aren't that complicated. The military's got a really great system. Not all civilian maps have the military grid reference system on it, but you can still use your map and compass and basic knowledge to get where you need to go. So
on this podcast, we don't steer clear of good conspiracies, and it's possible that we may not always be able to use electronics to do what we're doing, possibly in the near future.
That's why I do ham radio.
Yeah, well, when we got on here and you said Breaker 19, I was like, it probably brings Matt right back to his basement.
Yeah, I mean, who runs all that stuff? And if we ever got in a real conflict with a peer, there are a number of them that have the capability of eliminating satellites.
Yep.
And that would change the way we do business day to day.
Yeah.
In ways that most of us don't realize. I mean, you guys are all pretty much the same age as me, but I remember when I took off to go to my military training, I drove across the country in a Jeep Cherokee with an Atlas. I didn't.
Yeah, I've done that.
I didn't have a GPS. I don't know how I did it. Like to this day, I'm like, man, how did I make it?
Yeah.
I did the same. I did similar things. I used to do auditions for music, and I'd fly somewhere, land, get a rental car, and they'd give you a map.
Sir, would you like a map with that?
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's what you had. Or else I'd go to the first gas station I saw and buy a map of the area.
Right.
And then I don't know how I did it either. I probably couldn't do it.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I saw a major media article the other day, and it talked about our government saying the possibility of using an EMP to protect its people. And I was like, man, I don't know. I don't put anything past anybody anymore. Like you see articles like that and you're like, somebody out there has the idea of, we should probably EMP our people to help them.
Yeah. I'm trying to think how that would be helpful.
Yeah, I don't know how it would be helpful. It probably wouldn't. I just see it come out.
Someone could use it as an excuse. I'm doing this for your own good.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's been a lot of bad done for your own good. Yeah. Like there's been a lot of bad things happen for your own good in this world's history.
Yeah.
For the greater good and for your own good. Yeah. There's been a lot of bad things that have happened.
For your own safety.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So, man, I just thinking about that, though, because, like, EMPs will wipe out any electronics.
Yeah.
What do you have that doesn't run on electronics today?
Yeah.
Not much.
And
we all need to get
what about your red dot sight? Your red dot sight going to work anymore,
You can put them in like a Faraday bag or something, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know how well those actually work. They've never been.
They don't know exactly what an EMP would do from what I've, read. it could, fry 60% of the electronics or pass over some, or if you're in a basement, it might not get it as bad, or,
Yeah.
who knows?
So we all
I don't want to find out.
1960s trucks.
Yeah, old stuff.
Need to learn how to shoot iron sights again.
Yeah.
I can shoot some iron sights. Yeah.
What do you do? You shoot iron sights, or when you've competed, do you shoot red dot?
So, okay, when I first started competing, I started competing because I was an instructor in the Special Forces, right? And I realized that I was a fish in a small pond, right? And I would frequently look for content that would help me improve my game, because everything I was doing was life or death, right? If I didn't give the guys that I was training the best training that I could provide them, I was sending them out to life or death situations less prepared than they should be, right? So that's how I approached training in that capacity. And so I was constantly researching, and I was reading articles, I was talking to people, and I was, YouTubing the heck out of, shooting sports. And it became very clear really fast when I watched guys like Jerry Michalek and some of those old school shooters, that they were kind of way ahead of where I was, right? And so I said, man, how am I going to take my game to that point? And I'm still trying to figure that out. But so I said, hey, I'm going to go try some competitions. It's just another opportunity for me to train. The first one I went to was a local 3-gun match. It was specifically for law enforcement and military. It was a Dugway Proving Grounds. I showed up thinking, like literally I went and drew a combat shotgun from our supply room, and I had my issued gear, right?
Yeah.
So I showed up with a basic M4, a Glock 19 pistol, stock Glock 19 pistol, and a Benelli M4. And I thought I was going to be okay. I was the second shooter at the very beginning of the day. The guy ahead of me was actually a pretty solid 3-gun shooter. He was a police officer, but he was a very good competitive 3-gun shooter. He walked up, and it was the first time I had seen a quad load. And I was like, how many shells did he just put in that shotgun?
Yeah.
And they're like 9. And I'm just like, he did it in like 3.5 seconds. What the heck just happened? It takes me like a minute to load 9 shells in that Benelli M4, right? And I'm just like, I am in trouble. And yeah, the pistol stage went well that day. The rifle shotgun pistol stages did not go well, So I did not end up winning that. And it just reinforced kind of what I had thought, that maybe I was, just another fish in a small pond, right? So then I kind of was like, well, maybe I need to shoot some more competitions. And then it became possible for me to go shoot in a military competition, right? Because the U.S. Army and the Marine Corps and the Navy, they all have a competitive marksmanship program. They're all different. And through those programs, you can compete to get what's called your distinguished badges. And civilians also can compete to get their distinguished badges. It's a process. It's not something you go and get in one match. If you're very, very, very good, you get it in like 4 matches.
Okay.
If you're very good. And you've got to perform at the highest level to get that award.
Yeah.
So I went out and I competed in a regional military match. And you have to shoot standard rack grade rifles and pistols.
Yeah.
And they have to be Army standard. They can't be like special operations standard. Like, so that's what I was used to, So
yeah.
like I have my slightly cooler stuff than the average dude did. But I showed up and they told me, hey, you can't use that pistol you've got. You can't use a Glock 19. You got to shoot a Beretta M9.
Yeah.
So pick a Beretta M9 that you've never shot and go to the line and compete with it. Consequently, that was the highest score I ever got in that match.
Interesting.
And I didn't know anything about the distinguished badge, right? But then the rifle was the complete opposite. They're like, hey, you can't shoot any optics. You got to shoot iron sights. And that was a train wreck, complete train wreck. I thought, I was a pretty good shot, and I got absolutely crushed by dudes shooting A2s, from the California National Guard, like a cook and a mechanic and stuff. And I walked out of there and I was like, man alive, I got hammered. And so I spent the next couple of years really learning, taking some of the skills I had learned in things like sniper school and stuff in special forces, and applying that to other skill sets, and slowly but surely learned how to compete in that arena. And it made me a far better rifle shooter, shooting those iron sights again, because when I started competing, you had to shoot iron sights for the excellence in competition matches.
Okay.
You could shoot other sights, other standard military sights for other matches, but for the excellence in competition and for the national match, it had to be iron sights. And so what is that? The excellence in competition, it starts out the 400-yard line. You shoot 10 rounds from the prone at the 400-yard line, and your goal is to hit a target that's about the size of a deck of playing cards.
Wow.
Right? Now, you got a full 20 by 20 by 40 target, but it's scoring rings, right? So your goal is to get a 5, and that's like the size of a deck of playing cards from 400 yards. And then the 4 is, I can't remember the exact dimensions anymore. I could have told you them when I was competing, but now, and it goes all the way down to 2. So if you just hit the target, that's a 2. Well, in standard Army qualification, if you just hit the target, that's good enough. You could just nick it. But now you're shooting competition, and you're trying to outscore everybody. It's a different animal.
Yeah.
So you'd shoot 400 yards, 10 rounds at 400 yards, then you'd move up to 300, and you'd shoot 10 rounds at 300, then you'd move up to 200, and you'd shoot 10 rounds at 200, but they had to be from a kneeling position. And then you'd move up to the 100, and you'd shoot 5 rounds from standing, 5 rounds from kneeling, on 5 rounds on 2 different targets. And then you had 10 rounds from the 75 to the 25, so 75, 50, and 25, and you had to put 5 rounds on 2 targets. You had 4 seconds at 75 to shoot as many rounds as you could.
Okay.
You had 3 seconds at 50 to shoot as many rounds as you could. And then you had 2 seconds at 25 to get the rest off, right? And it was on 2 targets. So, if you only shot 4 shots, you had to get 6 in 2 seconds on 2 different targets.
Oh, okay.
So that was the excellence in competition match. And I learned a lot of marksmanship fundamentals with rifle in the process of, kind of chasing that badge. It's kind of like Napoleon said, men have been known to do a lot for just scraps of ribbon and metal. And so I spent a lot of time kind of chasing that goal, and luckily managed to pull off both my excellence, my distinguished badge in rifle and pistol. The pistol came quickly. The rifle took me a while, and it was actually my last match that I shot. I didn't know it was going to be my last match. I thought I had another year, but COVID-19 wrecked my last year.
Ruined everything.
Yeah, it really did. It ruined my last year of competition shooting in the Army. But yeah,
Those are to me, those are insane distances. 400
Yeah, I
yards,
don't see how that's
iron
possible.
sights.
Yeah.
oh, it's totally possible.
Well, I mean, I believe it, but
Yeah, possible for you,
Yeah.
possible for me. Very different
Oh,
things.
no, it's possible. It's just, it's learning the principles and where to focus, and, just trusting the process. And then, but that's the thing is the national match, which is a civilian equivalent match, they shoot 600.
Oh, wow.
And now they're shooting big bullseyes, but it's still, your bullseye is still only 10 inches.
Yeah.
Or no, it's 6 inches. It's 600 yards at 6 inches, so it's 1 minute of angle roughly. And so they shoot that, and up until, oh man, it's probably been probably 2019 or 18 is when they made the change to where they could use optics. Up until that point, it was iron sights only, and they were shooting 600. So,
Is there some type of holdover that you learn? I mean, that's how little I know about iron sights.
so okay, and yes, you'd have to hold over a lot. But in competition, the iron sights on an M16 rifle, they have a rear dial, which adjusts the elevation of the rear sight, right? So you would actually dial for elevation.
Okay.
Right? It's this way. You,
Yeah.
you dial this way. They're like, he's lying. That's windage. You dial this way for windage. But that's what we would do. We would actually, like I said, I started applying things that I had learned from sniper school to that competition. In sniper school, when I went through, we would dial for elevation and hold for wind, right? So we would always dial up, so if that bullet's going to drop 30 inches, at 300 yards or something like that, you dial 10 minutes of angle on your scope. Yeah, we used minutes of angle when I went through. I'm that old. And then we would read our winds and figure out our wind hold, and we would hold that on the horizontal line of the reticle. That's hard to do with iron sights. So I would dial my windage holds on my iron sights as well. And it worked out pretty well. But you had to be real conscious, because when winds would shift and you'd have to adjust on the fly, so.
That'd be fun to take some iron sight courses just to learn it. Like, same thing, those fundamentals.
You say when.
Okay.
We'll do it,
There's too much cool stuff in life.
Yeah, that's not
Matt
one.
Moore.
Yeah, that's not one of the things that most people would consider cool. That's one of the things that, like, that's a fundamental. That's not sexy by today's standards. That's just, and that's the weird thing. Like, as an instructor, there's like this group of instructors that are like entertainers, and their product is all about looking really flashy and cool, and we're going to make you an operator, and you're going to be so awesome, and like, come train with us and you'll be an operator. And they've got all these flashy, cool time standards and like badges and stuff that you can try to get, and people will go and take their class multiple times chasing after this coin or this badge or whatever the case may be. But then you go work with those people and you see them compete, or you see them on the range, and you're like, fundamentally, you're not strong. Like, you're very weak fundamentally. What are you learning? And they're chasing this cool thing instead of improving, and that's really kind of frustrating. And I see a lot of guys doing that, and there are very few instructors out there that are really teaching the basics and fundamentals and really making sure that their students are growing. Like, you took a class with me. Like, we didn't work on like shooting and moving.
It was
and running
not
around.
sexy at all. Nothing sexy at all.
But I thought
Probably
It was
greatly
fun.
improved your shooting.
I'm shooting way better now.
Yeah.
That's
So-
cool. Well, and when emotion goes up, intelligence goes down. That's something that runs through my mind quite often. So, you don't have those fundamentals. So whether it's in competition or whether it's in combat, and all of a sudden that emotion goes up and you don't have anything to fall back on,
Right.
what have you learned?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's trying to get those procedures into a subconscious level, right? And you have to just practice them. So let's talk about a guy in the tactical games that embodies this perfectly. The first time I saw this guy, fitness was on point, because he'd been doing fitness forever. His shooting was not on point. I think he thought maybe he was going to be a little better, and was going to be able to make up for his lack of shooting. And I don't think he expected others to shoot to the level that they did. But like Jacob Hepner, his first time was probably in that same event that you're talking about.
Yeah, the Price.
Yeah,
I think it's
Price.
the first time I met him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, great dude, great guy, but came out and really struggled with the shooting. And man, he went on a mission after that.
Yeah.
And he's done a really good job of posting his progression. Like he's one of the few guys that will, shoot a drill and then, hey, let's go look at the target. Like you see a lot of guys on Instagram shoot, and then, let's. That was awesome.
Yeah.
That was a.
That was really fast.
1.2. That was a 1.2 bill drill, and you're like, that's cool. What did it look like? And they're cut.
Yeah.
It's like awesome. I never even saw what you were shooting at. But Jacob would always go up and look at his target and show you what he was shooting at. Oh wow, I had 7 off and 3 on. That's great, but what he did is he took his CrossFit and his fitness background and applied it to training in firearms, and like Jacob is very, like his program used to be called Grit, right? And his stuff is all about just like doing the basics and doing them really well and just grinding and just creating some grit. And so that's what he did. He dry fired extensively, and he studied the proper procedures and techniques to do things. And a lot of people will say, man, he made this huge improvement in a very short amount of time, and he did. Because right now, he is fantastic. Like, he's a very good shooter, and he's closing the holes in his game very quickly, right? And he has gotten to where I would honestly say he is in the top 3 shooters. Well, I'd say probably he's definitely the top 5 of all shooters in the tactical games.
Wow.
Of all divisions. If you took all the shooters in the tactical games and threw them together, I'd put him in the top 5. And it's because he has just really worked the fundamentals and basics. He sought out subject matter experts, and he trains religiously. He shoots every day. He dry fires every day, just like he's treated it just like his CrossFit and his fitness routine, just like his diet. It's another thing that he does with absolute discipline. So it's paid off, and it shows,
That's something we can all aspire to.
Pretty cool.
And it's something that we all can do. That's what's cool about it. And can we improve that quickly? Possibly, maybe not. But we can improve.
Yeah. I mean, he's got some things going for him. He's a fantastic athlete. He has outstanding body awareness and kinesthetics and all that stuff. So he's like very, he's a specimen. But at the same time, it's really his work ethic that sets him apart.
That grit.
And he'll tell you that. He'll say, I'm actually not that athletic, which is a lie. But
Says someone who went to the to the CrossFit Games several times.
Yeah,
No, I'm not that.
Yeah, but he'll tell you he outworks most people.
Yeah.
And he does work hard. So, and that's very respectable.
Yeah, for sure.
So.
This is probably an answerable question more individually, but someone who is aspiring to shoot better in the tactical games and take that to competition, what are you looking for as far as hours per day dry firing or hours per week dry firing versus live fire?
I believe in quality versus quantity. So if you, and really, if you're someone who is working 2 jobs and, has to fit in their fitness and has a family and all that, you're not going to be able to dedicate 3 hours a day to dry fire. But there are very few of us in this world who can't dedicate 20 minutes a day to something other than social media or watching TV. So it's one of those things where it all adds up. If you can go do 20 minutes a day of dry fire, you're going to, really quickly that adds up to, 2+ hours a week of working, and it all starts to add up. I would rather see somebody do 20 minutes a day than 2 hours once a week.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because most people can't focus that long. Most people, they're gonna stop really paying attention. They're going to stop holding themselves accountable. But 20 minutes, you can say, hey, all right, cool. I just got home from work. I need to like calm down or something. You stop in the garage and you do quick dry fire practice, quick dry fire session, and then all that crud from work is gone.
Yeah.
You're relaxed and you go in, all right, cool. Or maybe you're just humbled again because you know, you're not hitting those 1.5 second reloads. Darn it, you know.
2.5 second reloads.
3.5 second reloads. Hey, and the important thing is start where you're at, start building habits, and then let the process happen. You know, let the process happen. And so, man, 20 minutes a day is gonna pay off huge. If you're already doing 20 minutes a day and you're not seeing the results, there's a couple of things: either increase quantity or increase attention. And then there's other pieces to go along with that, like what is it that's holding you back? Is it your attention? Is it your focus? Are you training your nervous system to actually be ready for these drills and things? So I'm getting ready to actually start a master's degree program in sports performance psychology, right? And I'm excited and nervous about it because I haven't gone to school for a while, and you know, graduate school is kind of scary to me. So here we go. But one of the things I started doing when I was competing and when I was struggling with the rifle competitions is I actually started working with sports performance psychologists.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, you know, back then I thought psychology was kind of a stupid science. You know, it was like, it's kind of a fake, made up science. Yeah. You know, it's not the real thing. You know, you can't see it. You know, but it had a profound improvement on my performance. You know, and you know, we all know that power of positivity and all of this stuff, but it's so much more than just that. And so are you seeking out improving your mental game too? You know, it's a big piece.
Yeah.
Are you training your nervous system? Are you training yourself mentally? Do you have a mental management program when you step into your dry fire scenarios? I remember one of the things my high school basketball coach did that was kind of cool is he would put us in situations where he'd be like, at the end of practice, you're tired, and he'd be like, all right, put it up on the scoreboard, and we'd be down 2 points with 3 seconds to go, and we had to inbound the ball and get it down there and get a good shot, right? And he'd put us in scenarios like that at the end of practice, at the end of really emotional, really hard practices. And he'd be like, all right, guys, here's the scenario. And if you miss the shot, you're doing hard eights, you know? Nobody wanted to do hard eights, you know? So like there was something on the line. So it was, I don't know if he knew what he was doing, but he was putting us in an emotional situation to where it was simulating a game situation. So it would take you to that same arousal state that you would be experiencing in a game situation. And then, you know, when we actually got in that position, we'd already been there.
Yeah.
So it was familiar and we knew how to perform in that. So being able to put yourself in those kind of scenarios as well. So the question is actually huge, and we can go on and on about it. But there's been some conversations in the tactical games a number of times. How much should we be doing just firearms practice? You know, like, should we go to the range and just shoot? Or should we be going to the range and doing like simulated tactical games stages, right? Yeah. Fitness and shooting. And the argument has gone back and forth, and some guys are like, hey, no, you just need to go learn to do fundamental marksmanship. And really, if you're a new shooter, yes, get the fundamentals. If you're a shooter that's been shooting for a long time, continue to practice your fundamentals. They don't ever go away. Continue to practice them. They are perishable as well. So continue to practice them. But there is a difference in types of training. So there's like exploring training, where you're exploring your capabilities, you're building new capabilities, and then there's exploiting, right? And in exploiting, you're taking those capabilities you've been working on and you're applying them to a scenario. So like you think about jiu-jitsu, you go to a class and you do your flow drills and stuff like that, and you do your technique drills, and then you go to a tournament. Now you're exploiting those skills, right? You're doing like basic what is it, bars and stuff like that, and
Yeah.
scales and
Yeah,
things.
scales, exercises.
Yeah, scale exercises and things like that, and then you apply them. You exploit them by playing them in a piece of music.
Yeah.
Right? You're never going to be a concert anything if you don't practice exploiting those skills. You can play scales all day, the most beautiful scales ever, but if you can't put them into practice, they are useless. Same thing with being able to do a 1 second reload. Great. You can stand still, do a 1 second reload, but you've never put it into a scenario where I just shot 5 rounds. I have 10 rounds in my next position. I have to think through this. I have a 15-round magazine. If I don't do a magazine change between here and there, I'm going to go to slide lock, and then I have to do a slide lock reload between here and there, or I can rip off that awesome 1 second reload in the 5 steps it takes me to get to there. The gun is up and ready to rock as soon as I hit that position. I clear those 10 shots, and now I have a decision to make. Do I want to reload before I get to that next position again, or do I ride the lightning and hopefully get those next 6 shots on target?
Yeah.
So that's what I love about competition as well, is it makes you think about stuff like that, and it makes you plan and problem solve. But so how many hours a week? Man, it's really a personal thing. And you start where you're at with what you have, and you do the best you can. And if you're starting from zero and just doing magazine changes or draws, or even holding a firearm up on target is exhausting, and you can do 10 minutes of it, start with 10 minutes. And just like everything else, start at the crawl, work up to a walk, and then get to a run. And if you get to the point to where you're like, hey, I'm crushing this. And I know another perfect example. There's a couple of them in the tactical games who started out at nothing and now are crushing, and they started with, man, I don't even know how to load this thing, so I'm just going to work on loading it and getting it on target and being able to squeeze the trigger without jerking it, and then slowly worked up. So, and then live fire. That's a tough one too. So you've got a couple of things that you have to take into consideration. How much money do you have?
Yeah.
Or how many sponsors do you have? Probably it's a question of how much money you have, because it's not a super cheap sport. A lot of people will give you a hard answer on this. I'm going to dance around it a little bit. A lot of people will tell you a 10-to-1 ratio. So you should do 10 times the live fire that you do, or 10 times the dry fire that you do live fire. And that may be what you can afford. Maybe you can't even afford that. Maybe 200 rounds of ammo a month is what you can throw down, because it is expensive.
Yeah.
It's coming down a little bit, but they're projecting it to go back up, so hopefully it won't. But there's a lot of factors that come into this. Now, if you are one of those people who can only afford 200 rounds, then you really need to have a plan when you go to the range, because you can't just go and plink. If you go and plink, you're going to stifle your progress. You need to treat it just like you treat the gym. You don't go in the gym and just walk in and one day go, man, I feel like doing some curls over here, and you do some curls, and then oh, that machine's open, I'm going to go do some leg extensions, and you do some leg extensions, and then there's a treadmill over there, so you run on the treadmill and you go home. You're never going to progress like that, right? It's probably better than doing nothing, but you're not really going to progress, right? You don't just go to the jiu-jitsu gym and roll, roll around like that. You have to have a plan. You have to come up with, and that plan should be based on what are my goals and where am I at, and I'll tell people, you have to build the vehicle you want for the race you're going to run, and that's the same thing with firearms training. You've got to look at it and say, what do I want to achieve? So tactical games, I would say start off with just basically being able to put every round you shoot where you want it. Now you're going to have to evolve if you want to get really good. You're going to have to evolve into an action shooter of sorts too. You can't just shoot stationary anymore. You're not going to shoot everything off of a barricade anymore. You have to be pretty well rounded, and they've announced that you also have to shoot out to 700 now, which is a big change. When I started the tactical games, it was out to 300, and then last year it went out to 500, and I had a very sneaking suspicion that I needed data out to 700 for nationals. I was like, something told me, just honestly, it's because they shot over 700 at the TAC 2 gun in Nevada. And when I saw that, I'm like, they're going to go to 700 at nationals, I guarantee.
Put an idea in their mind. They're like, yeah they're going to do that.
I saw it, and I was like, they're shooting 700 at nationals. Like and so I made sure I had data out to 700, and it paid off because the far target was 670 yards.
Wow.
And I was like, good guess, So had to thread a needle a little bit.
That's
on that
pretty
one.
far.
Yeah, that is far, and especially with the names left me, but the 1 to 8 power scopes that we're using. I mean, for me, I think that's far.
Yeah, I mean, so when I went through sniper school, this is the funny thing. When I went through sniper school, I went through in like 2000. It was either 7 or 9. I can't remember which. We only had 10 powers.
Okay.
Like that was our max magnification on our scopes, was 10 power, and I shot out to 1450. And it was, so it's doable. The magnification, it definitely is a tool that is really nice to have. I honestly don't think the magnification is as important for long range shooting in that aspect as it is for some of the intermediate ranges in the tactical games. Like when they put a target at 300 that has, 1/8-inch lines demarcating the outside of the target, right?
Yeah.
So your scoring zone is only marked by 1/8-inch lines. That's pretty hard to see at 300 yards even with 10 power. Like 8 power, you're not going to see it. 6, right out. So
You're shooting at the white thing.
yeah, you need to look on the target and know where your scoring zone is, and just guess. It's like shooting a USPSA target. You can't really see your scoring zones. You just have to know where they are, right? So, yeah, having the LPVO is really nice. I do shoot a 1 to 10 in the tactical games, but even on the long range stage, I didn't turn it all the way up. The targets were big enough. I didn't need to see them. What I needed was a really clear, crisp picture, and so that I could hold my wins.
I guess I have turned magnification way up and have been less successful than dialing it back a little bit. And I don't know if it's that whole aim small, miss small principle.
So one of the things you run into, and there's differences in optics, But if you have a first focal plane scope where your scale is always the same, I would recommend people not turning it all the way up because you lose clarity. When you go all the way to max magnification, you're normally going to lose some clarity, especially around the edges, but you're not going to have as crisp a picture as you would if you back it off a power or two. So I shoot the Vortex Razor Gen 3, and I backed it off to an 8 power on the long range stage. I mean, even shot it lower than that, but I didn't need a super huge picture. I needed a really crisp picture, and I also needed to be able to have a field of view. The other thing you get when you turn it way up is you lose field of view, and it's tougher to get on the next target, or you have to come out of the scope, get on the next target, line up, which is a good way to do things. So anyways, that's one of the things. If you got a second focal plane scope, you're kind of stuck at your max power because that's normally where they line up the BDC or your mils or minutes of angle. That's where the scale matches. Now, you can do math on it and figure out what percentage you actually have to hold, but that's math, and it's math.
I need a chart.
Yeah, in the heat of the moment, it's
Yeah, it's not the best technique. Yeah.
So backtracking a little bit, Matt, do you have any set dry fire schedules that you're working on?
Well, yeah, I've got the one that Kirk did for the tactical games, and it's kind of
The old school one.
the old school one. Yeah, a lot of it though, I don't really understand what I'm supposed to be doing.
Gotta do a better job of coaching here.
Not because it's all written down. You know,
Yeah.
maybe a video would help.
Yeah.
But a lot of it, it does make sense because you go in different positions. You go in, it's the same stuff, but from different positions. It's the same stuff for rifle or for pistol. And so it's, that stuff is pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah, what I tried to do when I was planning that out is I tried to make it very sequential and progressive. So it was taking someone from, I just bought my first firearm and I want to learn how to use this. So I took it from, loading to just getting on target, to drawing and getting on target, to drawing and getting on target, multiple targets, to drawing and getting on target, multiple targets, working in reloads, breaking down the reloads into steps. And then from positions, alternate positions, barricades, and then movement was kind of the last little bit. So that's something that's tough is doing things sequentially and progressive because we always want to get to the goal.
Yeah.
Instead of treating it like a process, we want to get to that goal. So
It is useful though. It's really good. And I bought one of those dry fire mags that resets your trigger for you.
nice.
Those are cool because then you can practice pulling the trigger on multiple targets.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can practice prepping your trigger on each of those. And that's been helpful too.
Were you able to get one of those for the 320
Yeah.
for the Legion?
Yep.
You told me about it, and I got all excited, and I hopped on there, and they don't make it for what I'm shooting.
Yeah, yours
So-
is still pretty new.
Is it worth it to still get something like that and just train on another firearm? I mean, do they transfer?
I would say yes, and there are some people who tell you, train with a cruddier trigger. If you have like a super nice pistol for competition, and then you have like a Glock, a standard Glock, train with that, to learn your trigger prep. I would definitely, I shot Glock for years.
Yeah.
Because that's what I shot Beretta, and then we switched to Glocks, and I shot Glocks for years and years. And the only pistol I owned was a Glock 19 for the longest time. And then targets started getting a little smaller, so I bought a Glock 34, had a Glock 34, and then staccato, set me up with a Staccato XL.
Oh, you don't just wear the Staccato shirt?
No, I mean I do. It's a great looking shirt, but yeah, Staccato actually set me up with a pistol, and the one that I shot in my second national championship, and it won two national championships, and
That's
then
awesome.
then the second one won the one this year. So I've been shooting a Staccato for a little while, but I'll tell you, going from this is the thing I've come to realize about handguns is there is less difference in accuracy of handguns than there is in accuracy of rifles. Like you'll shoot some rifles that, to quote one of my buddies, your target's going to look like rat poop in a drawer. It's going to be everywhere. I can't say it with the North Carolina accent, but you can imagine. It's just rat poop in a drawer. And you can swap out all the ammo you want. You can try everything, and it just will hurt your feelings every day. And you'll be in an abusive relationship, and it will just be very toxic, right? And there's nothing you can do about it because it is the gun. And then you will shoot some rifles that are just like, it's almost like it's cheating. You can't miss. And they'll just stack rounds, and it's great. Pistols, our distances are typically shorter with pistol, and you're not going to see that huge variation. You know, one's not going to shoot 10 inches, and I mean, if you locked it in a vise and shot it, they're not going to shoot 10 inches, and the next one's going to shoot a quarter inch. Most of the major manufacturers are going to be pretty dang close. But to get the same results out of them takes a lot more mental focus. Like, I can shoot my Glock 34 almost, I can shoot it as accurately as I can shoot my Staccato XL. But in the heat of the moment, in the tactical games where I am like really tired, it's a lot easier to roll up to the line with a Staccato XL and stack rounds than it is to roll up to the line with a Glock with a stock trigger and do this complete mental switch and go into 10 out of 10 focus and shoot those rounds. Whereas I can roll up with the Staccato XL and go to about a 6 out of 10 focus and shoot well. So they're capable. It's just, are you capable?
For sure.
Are you capable of making that switch?
Yeah, we have a buddy, Matt Bitter. He went to Bend, Oregon, and shooting a Glock 19 and just smoked it.
Yeah.
He did great. He won the intermediate division, and it's cool. You know, he's there with it's a little bit upgraded Glock, and then you've got people there with Atlas and Staccatos and all of that, and he puts in the work.
Yeah. I will tell you, I took a lot of pride for many years out of beating what I would call race guns with a stock Gen 2 Glock 19.
Yeah.
Guys would get like really hurt, and they'd be like, well, so what are you shooting, man? It's a Glock 19. Well, what upgrades have you done to it? None.
Yeah.
Dang it.
Just practiced a lot.
What gen is that? It's a Gen 2. You know, but it was the only gun I had, so it was the only thing I shot. And then, you know, now I pretty much just shoot my Staccatos. Because they're smooth.
They are smooth.
They are smooth, yeah.
Yeah. What's the difference between the XC and the XL?
The XC is the ported island barrel. So, and then the XL is the extended barrel.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, if I were gonna pick up another Staccato, I would definitely like to get an XC, or the CS, the subcompact.
Concealed carry one.
Oh man,
yeah, that's pretty sweet.
That's probably the most fun pistol I've shot.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I got to shoot it right before it came out, and that one was just, it was fun to shoot. I was like, oh man, this would be expensive, because I just want to go shoot it all the time.
It feels so good.
Your dry fire ratio would change from
it
10 live fire to 1 dry fire.
Yeah. But it was a lot of fun. But all of them are just super fun to shoot. But that XC is pretty sweet with the port supported island barrel. So your front sight is part of the barrel.
Yeah.
And it doesn't move. But
Yeah, getting back on target. It
Getting
was
back
what
on target is
the biggest
yeah.
thing
So
that I
smooth.
notice is, you shoot the Glock 19 and you got to get back on target.
Right.
And that shooting that XC, it's like it just barely pushes your hand straight back.
Yep.
There's no barrel whip.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really pretty sweet.
Cool.
I would love to have one, but finances,
It's cool.
Yeah.
economy.
It's cool what they can build.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely is.
Well, it's been an hour. You have to sleep tonight to get we all have to sleep. To
Yeah,
get
we
our-
got to get
our
this
sleep
guy
is a
rested
crutch.
up. We're
It's
going to
like-
wear him out tomorrow.
Yeah.
Sleep is a crutch. Just kidding.
Hey, Jocko. David Goggins over here
I ran here without a shirt on.
with my toenails falling off.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's you.
I got like 8 stress fractures right now.
No, like we talked earlier, if I can't perform tomorrow, I need to look good, which
Yeah.
means I need to sleep.
Yeah.
So, no, I just really appreciate both of your time. And Matt, I appreciate you setting tomorrow up. It's going to be really fun.
So do
I told him I'd go, and then about a week ago he texted. He's like, "You going, right?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'll go sign up. I told you I would.
Time
I
to
just
put your money where the
haven't-
mouth is.
haven't signed up yet."
Yeah.
And then he thought it was yesterday.
Oh,
Yeah.
that was so embarrassing. Okay, I texted our coaches
Yeah.
because I was supposed to coach CrossFit classes that I had told someone else that I would cover.
Right.
So I texted everyone that night, "Hey guys, I really want to take this firearm course tomorrow, but I signed up for classes. I'm really sorry. Can anybody take these?" So I had a coach text me aside from it. He's like, "Well, if you could coach the 8 o'clock, I'll jump in halfway through the 8 and then I'll cover 8:30, 8:30 to 10 so that you can do that course." And then I go to sleep and I wake up and I see my text and it was my brother-in-law and he's like, or maybe it was you. Someone was like, "Hey, it's not till Thursday." I had changed a whole kid's schedule, and yeah,
Well, it's exciting. So I'm trying to do a lot more instruction, moving forward. I've started my own company now, and I always wanted to do, firearms instruction. I loved it when I was in the military. I've instructed all over the world. That was one of the things I got to do in Special Forces, and I've gotten to compete in a number of different countries, and I'm passionate about it because I want people to be empowered. We talk about being empowered and all of that. I love seeing people take control of their own safety, and maybe you're not one of those people who wants to carry a gun all the time. Maybe you just want to be safe around guns, come take a class, go take a class and learn how to be safe around guns, because it's part of American culture. They're around, and you can tell yourself they're not, but they are. So learn to be safe with them. Teach your kids to be safe with them, and so I love teaching. I love seeing people grow. I love seeing people become empowered and more effective, and seeing their confidence grow. I do love teaching fundamentals and the basics, and I try to have some fun along the way doing it. We did have fun in my class.
We did have fun. It was
Yeah.
a lot of fun.
I mean, it was really fun watching you, crushing targets.
I'm shooting
this
way
is
better
the best
now.
I've ever shot.
Yeah,
And I was
it
like,
is.
well, okay, well, then it's great. So,
Now I don't have to drive down to Utah to do it. We
Yeah.
made you drive up here.
yeah. So, have targets will travel.
Yeah, that's right.
that would
Yeah.
be a viral Instagram post.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And with your company, you're gonna have to start running that social media. Well, you already
Yeah.
your personal social media is awesome.
Yeah, I need to do more. I've been pretty absent for a while. So I started my own company, and real quick, I'll explain a little bit about
Yeah.
the name. And so I called it Drakkar Collective, and Drakkar is a Viking longship. And so if you look at me, it's going to be hard to believe, but I have quite a bit of Scandinavian ancestry, and it's when you think about Viking longships, probably the first thing you think about is raiding and burning and pillaging villages and along the whole coastline of Europe. But it was so much more than that for them. It was a way to navigate, cross cross oceans, to take their culture, to learn new cultures, to create a community that was unified in improving their lives. Now, sometimes it was through violent means, but not always. Sometimes they became great traders too, and they were merchants, and they had a very massive effect on the world and on their own culture through their ability to travel. And I wanted something that would be more than just me showing up and saying, "Hey guys, okay, you're holding the gun funny, stop it." I wanted it to be something that would be more like a community of like-minded people who were working towards a unified goal. Because on a Drakkar, what was cool about them is they could sail in the open ocean or they could go up rivers, And when you're going up river, everybody had to work together. You're rowing together, And when you're crossing the ocean, everybody had jobs and they were working together. So it was a community moving towards a common goal, and when they had to, they could get pretty rough and tumble.
Yeah.
So
I really like that.
So that was kind of the goal. So throwback to my Swedish and Norwegian ancestry, and also the imagery of a community that can work together, and when push comes to shove can be pretty vicious.
That's really cool. Where can people find that?
So my Instagram is where I'm doing a lot of the advertising. I have a website that's being built. My friend kind of started building it for me without telling me about it. So it's
looks pretty good.
I blush sometimes
Looks
when I
really
look at
good.
it. I'm like, holy cow, calm down. That's awesome. But there's a lot of work to be done on that as far as setting up events and things on there. But most of my stuff is either on Practice Score. You can look for Drakkar Collective, or on my Instagram. Cool. And you can always reach out to me. And like he said, I'm here. He asked me to come out here, so I'm here. And if you can set up a location and a group, I'm super happy to come out.
What is your Instagram? Kirk Holmer.
Kirk Holmer.
Okay.
Yeah. Facebook, it's Shooter Freedom, but that's a story for another podcast.
Okay, we'll have to hold you to it.
Sounds political.
Yeah.
Not that cool.
Yeah, I'd love to hear it. I appreciate it. Matt, I appreciate you. Just appreciate you guys. And we'll throw this out online. Let's get some people. What's the name of your website? Is there a URL yet?
Well, yeah, it's he set it up as kirkholmer.com. So
okay, cool.
There's work to be done there.
He's all humble.
It's a cool looking website.
No, that's cool. It's it might feel weird to have your name on stuff.
Yeah.
But also you've had a pretty great journey getting to where you're at. So, just
you got to tell your story.
Yeah, my advice, not knowing you super well, would just be own it. Own Kirk Holmer. It's cool. You have a great story and you have a lot to teach the world. So
appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks,
we'll see you guys soon. Thanks.
Awesome.